Welcome to this edition of Dialogue Weekend. I'm Xu. The plan to send UK asylum seekers to Rwanda was stopped at last minute by the European Human Rights Court. So what is the UK and Rwanda deal? Will the UK push ahead with the deportation plan? Can the plan solve the UK's immigration problem? Or is it unethical and unworkable, as some suggest? To discuss these issues and more, I'm joined by Hannah Ryder, founder and CEO of Development Reimagined, and Iain Begg, professor at the European Institute of the London School of Economics and Political Science. Welcome to the discussion. Well, Iain, I will start with you. Tell us, what is the Rwanda plan? What is the deal between the UK and Rwanda?
In some ways, it's very simple. The idea is to outsource processing of asylum seekers to Rwanda in a similar way to what Australia did by trying to place potential asylum seekers in Papua New Guinea, in a way which takes some of the problem off the UK. It's motivated, according to the government, and I don't necessarily agree with this, by the idea that it becomes a deterrent to the illegal crossing of the English Channel in rickety boats in a way which puts lives at risk. Behind this is an expectation within British politics that something is done to contain the level of not just overall immigration, but particularly of what's deemed to be illegal immigration by those who break all the processes that are normally applied. It appeals to a certain segment within the Conservative Party, which, as you know, is in government, and is seen very much as an issue that divides the Conservative Party from its opposing parties, the Labour Party, who are seen to be, and again, I'm saying what the idea is rather than whether I believe it, soft on migration. The liberal elite would be happy to have more people coming in. The hardline Conservatives would like to stop it. And this is being seen as a way of appealing to that hardline base, which keeps Boris Johnson in power.
Mm-hmm. Well, Hannah, from your point of view, of course, the government said all they have done is legitimate, is legal, nothing illegal. I think technically probably they are right, but what about people's concern of human rights and the rights of those people? The treatment, like whether that's humanitarian, whether that's ethical, issues like that.
Well, yeah, I think this should be the number one concern. We really should be concerned about what are the rights and the agency of the refugees who are coming and who want to come into the UK, what they perceived as a safe haven, how to make sure that their agency is protected. And that's exactly what the decision from the European Court was really focused on, how these people have made a decision that they would like to be in the UK to be able to have safe treatment in the UK. At the same time, I think one of the things that we need to remember is also that there's another country in this partnership, Rwanda. Now, Rwanda, through this partnership, is trying to say we would like to be seen as a safe haven for refugees. Now, there's lots of people who might counter that, but that's really what the Rwandan government position is. Now, in future, perhaps it might be possible, and perhaps Rwanda should be going out to say that in a much more kind of open way and trying to say, look, refugees from all over the world, you don't need to be going to the UK. You don't need to always be going to high-income countries to find a safe haven and build a good life for yourself. You can go to other places like Rwanda and many other countries who would find refugees and find a good life for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Iain, what do you make of that? Like Rwanda trying to present itself as the place for those people to settle, but then you see the refugees or people basically leaving their countries are seeking asylum probably in the UK, and their choice is not Rwanda, right?
No, and when you look at the list of people who are supposed to be deported on Tuesday, it comprises Iranians, Iraqis, and Afghanis, and somebody from Vietnam. Now, they're hardly going to think of Rwanda as their destination of choice. I don't know Rwanda. It may be that Rwanda is indeed a welcoming place, But the reason that these people are trying to get to the UK is that they regard it as their ultimate safe haven. Now, there's another level to this, which is that all the refugees who are crossing the English Channel are automatically coming from France, because that's the other side of the English Channel. And a line in British politics has been, France is a safe haven. France is a modern, welcoming country. They should declare themselves refugees in the country in which they land, which is France, or maybe even Italy, if they're coming from elsewhere. And therefore, we want to deter in the UK them trying to make this additional hazardous journey across the Channel, paying criminal gangs. Now, I can see some of that argument, but the ultimate fact is, as Hannah emphasized, they want to come to the UK, and the UK really ought to find a better way of dealing with this than deportation.
Mm-hmm. Well, Iain, as you said, you sent off probably 7 refugees, 7 asylum seekers. Then there's arrival of, many more than 7. So now here there is a case. Here's a question like whether this is the way to deal with the issue and whether it is workable.
Well, I think not. I think it is going to collapse. However, it's a very popular thing inside the Conservative Party. So it wouldn't surprise me if the government tries to persevere with it and to find a way of making it work, at least as a temporary expedient. But if it only works with a small number of people being sent away and is no deterrent to those trying to cross the Channel, then it really doesn't add up. Because if you deport 1,000 and 10,000 come in, clearly the policy is not going to be working, and that's the most likely way in which it's going to collapse. There is a separate problem, which is that we refer to refugees, but in cases the people trying to cross the Channel are economic migrants. And that boundary between an economic migrant and a refugee is a very blurred one, a very difficult one to explain to those either attempting to come in or in the country receiving them. And that requires a much more comprehensive discussion, not just involving the UK and Rwanda, but the global approach to economic migration, which is, let's face it, wholly unsatisfactory.
Well, there's also the issue, obviously, many people say, if you look at where those asylum seekers are from, Hannah, for example, they are from Iran, they're from Iraq, they're from Afghanistan, Eritrea, for example. All those nations either were bombed by the US, UK, or other Western countries, or sanctions being imposed on those nations. And then probably there's even you want to send out a signal, trying to present this as an effort against, maybe incentive for those people to leave their country, but that probably ultimately will not work.
I mean, I honestly don't think that we should be aiming for a world in which we don't have flows of migrants for all sorts of reasons all across. I think what we want to be aiming for is a world in which people can go to whichever country they choose and where they can, again, make a good life for themselves. And I think if people, that has to be the ultimate goal. And it's unfortunate that at this point, what the UK is doing is really, and it's kind of the unintended effect, I guess, of this very domestic point of view, internationally, effectively making itself look very negative and very unwelcoming to visitors. Now, at the same time, UK is also being fairly welcoming to Ukrainian refugees and so on. So that's also, again, another part of this story which just doesn't really add up. But consistency in the policy is just not there. Nevertheless, I think the UK should start to think very carefully about, what is the international reputation that UK wants to have. UK is starting to talk about, coming out of the European Court for Human Rights, coming out of the Geneva Convention, even was mentioned by one of the politicians. Now, that is really, to even consider these sorts of questions is incredibly problematic. Mm-hmm. So I think just to win points domestically on a policy that, as Iain was saying, it's not clear that it's really going to work.
Mm-hmm. Well, Iain, Hannah mentioned this Ukrainian refugees. Everybody understands that there's a war going on. People, fleeing their own country, seeking refugees, seeking this asylum, understandably. But there is an element, people mentioned about, racism. All those being dispelled, let's say, are from people with colors. Is that an issue too in the UK?
Well, it's an issue in the UK. It's an issue across the whole of Europe. There was, as you know, a wave of Syrian refugees, and genuine refugees in this case, from fleeing from a war in 2015 onwards. Germany adopted a policy of welcoming them with a famous phrase from Angela Merkel, "Wir schaffen das," we can cope. But many other countries resisted the arrival of Syrian refugees. So there is undoubtedly a racial element to it. Ukrainians look like, well, me, not Hannah, and they are seen as to be more welcomed by many European societies. We can only regret that. But I also come back to this domestic politics of the whole story. It's shoring up Boris Johnson's base. So the domestic politics and all this can never be overlooked as a key driver of the policies.
Well, speak of that, Iain, domestic politics, some would say this is also part of the efforts by the government to distract from its own ongoing troubles, the Partygate, messiness of Brexit rules over Northern Ireland, Scottish independence referendum. Is that the case too?
In one word, yes.
So, a lot of politics in this immigration issue overall. It's not only about the deal between UK and Rwanda. It's mostly domestic politics, seems to me. Of course, it's a humanitarian crisis too. Hannah? Yes,
and like Iain said, it is clearly a domestic politics issue, and driven by domestic policies. It's not domestic politics. It's not, the numbers on migrants coming to the UK, refugees coming to the UK. UK doesn't. They are not uncontrollable. At the same, and the UK has the resources. It is a decision, and we've seen that from the experience of the Ukrainians. UK has the resources, and there are plenty of people in the UK who are willing to take in families, look after families. They have this feeling, this good feeling, as all humans do. We believe we're all humans. And so it's unfortunate that is then that these people do not really get to express their welcomingness and willingness. They're not pressured by the government to do that in the same way for refugees from other places, and instead having to leave. Hopefully, however, the noise around this, the international outrage, etc., will encourage the government to take a different position and to really put the needs of refugees at the center of its policy.
Well, thank you, Hannah and Iain. Thank you for your time and insight. Let's move on to the latest scene on the Chinese internet, where an education giant finds life again. When regulations limiting private tutoring went into effect in China a year ago, many education centers were forced to close down. But one center has found a way to change its business model while still utilizing its teaching skills. With skyrocketing sales, the Oriental Education and Technology Group combines charismatic product selling with English learning. Is this the new model for former education centers? What makes the company stand out? And how is it getting around the new education regulations? To discuss these issues and more, I'm joined by Qiang, Assistant Director of the International Monetary Institute at Renmin University of China, and Nurali Abliz, an influencer and the founder of the Force English and the lecturer at PKU-HSBC Business School. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. There's a star salesperson or internet celebrity from New Oriental, Dong Yuhui, one of the teachers at New Oriental, actually. He has become a big hit on TikTok for his online selling with, which he does basically in both Chinese and English, bilingual, live streaming and sales. He has millions of followers, a big hit, sells good at around 40 million yuan, some $6 million US. So for former education institutions who need ways to survive, so Qiang, we'll start with you. Is this the new business model?
No, I don't think this is a new business model. Talking about New Oriental School, talking about English teachers selling products, and also talking about this teaching plus selling model. I don't think New Oriental School or Mr. Dong is the first one. Actually, another influencer from New Oriental, a former New Oriental, Mr. Luo Yonghao, used to do that, and he's quite successful. Well, he is an influencer. He's a technician promoter, and also he is a very, very good salesperson. And he has been doing this probably for the past 3 years and earns hundreds of millions of Chinese yuan, probably about 100 million US dollars. But of course, the teaching part in his live streaming is less, and the sales part is more. But basically, he's the first one trying to combine them together and gain great success. But of course, we have to admit, Mr. Dong basically promote this a double model of the live streaming to a new peak, new height. So congratulations, this is really good success.
This is quite a refreshing. Nurali, what's your impression? What's your take on this latest development?
Well, I am thrilled. Well, I think as someone who gains a lot from the Oriental Group, and I would say that this is, I think it is a breakthrough in terms of live streaming and teaching and selling products. Because I've watched different kinds of streamers selling products. And this one is definitely different in a way that if you truly look at Dong and the whole team, he's not alone. There are like bunches of very talented teachers / sellers in Oriental. They will not only, teach, sell, but they will share stories. And it seems like they don't care about selling the products that much. They always say, if you like it, just go and buy it. If you don't like it, it's fine. Just shop reasonably. And I think that is a breath of fresh air. And that's why it just rings a bell with so many people here now who are just really fed up with the traditional way of, just like Chu said, shouting and using all kind of, in Chinese we say 套路, or in English we say different tricks to treat people to buy stuff. I think it's very genuine. I think it is a great model because, well, as you can see from the stocks market, obviously the markets buy these new styles. And the unique part about this model is that it's not just based on one person. Dong is amazing, but we have a bunch of team there. So you can actually, I would say, replicate this model.
Mm-hmm. Well, Qiang, as the company, the new Oriental has, garnered obviously unprecedented, gross merchandise volume and bilingual sales. But then people ask the question whether this is a temporary trend or a long-term business model or long-term business practice probably that can be sustainable for a long time to come?
Well, this is a very complicated question. I do think this is a quite successful model, mostly for the person, for the individuals. Mr. Dong is a very, very talented, very excellent teacher for sure. And I do think, like my coworker, Mr. Ali just mentioned, yes, the teacher is also like a seller, but the thing is we're selling ideas, good ideas. But sometimes you can also transform the tricks or skills into selling other products together with the ideas. So I think it's connected with each other. But I do think Mr. Dong, the very popular teacher, is going to be very successful in the future. That's for sure. It's like it's us. Mr. Yu Minghong used to be a very important influencer in China as well, like 40 years ago or 20 years ago. But the things for the New Oriental School, for New Oriental Group, that's probably going to be another story. You have to understand, I've been doing the digital economy research for quite a long time. We find out influencer is a good business model for individuals, but not for a group, because it's not quite replicable or duplicable for individuals, different individuals. For example, if you know that China, we have very popular sellers online like Mr. Li Jiaqi and Ms. Via. And they tried, very successful. Mr. Li Jiaqi, every year their sales is looking at 2 billion Chinese yuan. It's a phenomenon. But he tried very hard to duplicate his model to his team, not working very well. When he switched another host in the live stream channel, the sales number dropped dramatically. Same thing happened to Ms. Via, same. So her team, Ms. Via's team right now has just split up to form a new team. It's called BuzzBee Selling Online, but not quite as successful as their original boss. And also, if you look further earlier into before's model, you will see we have Zhang Dayi from Ruhan MCN Group. Zhang Dayi is very, very successful, but her group is not. And if you look further earlier to Papi Zhang is another very popular influencer online. herself is quite successful, but her team and company, well, not so. So we see the charm sometimes of an individual have to coincide with the trend of the time, people's emotion at the moment, and that cannot be duplicated. So I do not think this is a good business model for New Oriental Group as a whole, because there's not going to be another Mr. Dong happen in the future. Probably he is just going to be him.
Well, yes, individual story and the story of the company. Let's take a look at some of the response from the public. The live streamer is very good. If there's a need and the price is appropriate, I'm willing to buy, but I'm not there in any of these products. His words cannot stimulate my demands. It's something new, but that's all. I think it still depends on the discounts. Is this sustainable? And again, the model, as you mentioned, Qiang, earlier. So ultimately, some people would say it's about the discounts, it's about the price.
Yes, exactly. For the long-term operation, we took a look at the data of the backstage of the Alibaba Group. The numbers of the price basically are telling us a true story. So if you can keep on keeping your price lower than your competitors, with still controllable quality, and your product will trump all the way. People sometimes will follow their sensations. People are emotional. I have many friends purchasing products from the New Oriental live streaming room. They've been telling me, I don't care what they're selling. I've been buying 3 boxes of rice, but because I just like what they're saying. That's kind of emotional, totally acceptable, because this is people's sensation. People just know and like something of that. But after a long time, people's emotion will converge to the normal. When it converges to the normal, people will pay more attention to the quality to performance ratio. So when that comes, people will stick to the price, stick to the quality, as the evidence and data has been showing all the time. We've been checking out the data from also Li Jiaqi investors backstage, and it tells the same story. I know this sounds like, well, everybody prays for the magics, prays for something marvelous can happen. That's true. Sometimes we see that, but if you want it to last, you need something more. But I do believe New Oriental probably can find a very effective model to pick up very good quality with good price product, and that can help them in the long run, not just depending on one popular figure.
Yeah, Nurali, another comment from the internet. For live streaming, you only need to understand the products and show off your eloquence. It has nothing to do with the books or education. Thanks the New Oriental for letting us see that the live streaming can also have culture and the knowledge is useful. So extra value of knowledge of this useful information, makes them, it's making people's shopping experience more, let's say, more quality and more valuable. Probably that's the actual value, and that's why people will stick to probably New Oriental live streaming.
Well, it is a great thing that people like it. Well, I don't want to say that if you read more books, then you are more, let's say, on the higher social hierarchy. Well, if you like to read, it's fine. If you don't like to read, it's totally okay. We are just glad that New Oriental can offer a new way of selling, because the true story is that, well, I cannot tell for everywhere in the world, but at least here in China, most of the streamers, when you look at their live streaming, they're basically like yelling, crying out loud, please buy it right now. We only have 10 left, 5 left, 3, 2, 1, go. So I think that people just feel a little bit, I say, annoyed when they watch all those streamers. So again, I would say this is the magical part about this special, let's say, live streaming of New Oriental business model. And I also want to say that I think that's also one of the reasons that the streamers in New Oriental stream room they are so chill, is that they are not directly responsible for the sales numbers. At least you can tell from their, let's say, state of mind. They're more about sharing stories. They're more about sharing the products rather than just looking at the KPI or ROI. But I'm sure they will have to be responsible for those, but not as serious as other very, let's say, mature, I would say, quote, mature live stream room. And I think that's why people feel really relaxed and they would like to chill, I would say.
So Qiang, if you look at this business model, as Nurali mentioned, can this model be replicated in other sectors, or at least it's as a talent show in other sectors? You would see talented people to represent at least their sector or their part of business.
Well, for this part, I totally agree with Ali. Exactly. Well, what I mean is teaching plus selling. This model can be too complicated and not facing the grassroots community. But for the live streaming sales, this can be a big business. No matter you're an English teacher or not, as long as you have good English, overseas live streaming can be a real one. I can give you a small story. Just in 2020 and just 2021, in the whole world, we have the pandemic. And lots of people overseas trying to purchase products with good quality and price because the factories in their country has probably been suspended. Then there is a Chinese young man. Well, he has some English skill, not an English teacher as good as an Oriental school teacher, but he's just a normal guy. He has a very good supplier of the sweatpants. Sweatpants, everybody needs it in the winter and spring and autumn. So he tried to sell them to the overseas market. So he did some live stream in the social media platform. Guess how much does he make in a year? Well, the number is 20 million yuan, is about $3 million in 1 year pure profit. What he do is just selling online. And I think the secret of his success is that he meet the demands with a very, very good quality enterprise. He doesn't have any teaching part inside of the live streaming, but he's just providing value to the overseas. So this is actually providable because it's replicable, because in China we have hundreds of millions of the manufacturers with very good quality, tech savvy, some of them with very affordable price. So they need a voice, they need a presentation to help them to present the products to oversee to billions of the customers. They need the products to be known. And I think the Chinese salesperson with English skills can really help them, not only with English skills, with all the other foreign speaking skills. No matter you're an Oriental school teacher or you're just a normal guy from some other walks of life, you can also do that. And there's a huge opportunity inside of it. I truly believe in that.
So very important, resilience and the spirit of innovation. Well, on that note, we come to the end of today's show. Many thanks to our guests. You can also watch us on the CGTN app on YouTube. I'm Xu Qinduo. You can find me on Twitter, Xu Qinduo in one word. Thank you for watching. See you next time.